Hi everyone, my name is Ken. Welcome to This House. Today we are exploring the historic Glen House located in Cape Girardeau, Missouri. This house was built in 1883, and stick around, it has a very interesting story and we're about to go inside. As we walk in the front door, we come first to the foyer. And the foyer is very interesting for this time period because this house actually had an addition added to it in the 1900s. So as we look up, we can see the ornate details. And as we do look around, I can tell you all a little bit about the history of this house. This house was a wedding present from Edwin Branch Dean to his daughter, Lula Dean. Lula married David Glenn, who was originally from Kentucky. He moved to Cape Girardeau to work with his family in a saloon, and later opened a mercantile and a bank. All right, so directly across from the front door is this grand staircase that runs up to the second floor. It is actually floating in one of the sections, and it has been heavily decorated with stenciling work. And it also has a runner that has been added to the stairs. This would not have originally been carpeted. However, the pattern on the runner is period accurate. And directly across from the staircase is the front door. And as we look around, we can see the original windows, which are the stained glass on the side and the transom above the door. And then also the stenciling work in here is a lot more intricate for this vestibule. And this would have been an area that was part of the addition in the year 1900. So as we go through this house, we'll notice that a lot of the furnishings and hardware aren't necessarily original to the home. However, pieces from the period have been brought into this house. So what you see is a pretty accurate demonstration of what could have or what would have been inside of this house. Now, one of the original details that I do want to point out is this light fixture above us. It is made with leaded glass and it has an opalescent flare to it. So we can see different colors starting to shine through, which is just not something that you get with modern day glass. So let's walk on into the parlor now. And as we walk on into the parlor, we can see a lot of technology in this room. There's a speaking tube, there are lights, electric lights, and this house would have been used as a showroom for the mercantile that Lula and David owned. So walking into the parlor, we can start to see that this house wouldn't have necessarily been upper class, but definitely upper middle class. The fireplace in this room is original, and it was never updated to be marble or granite or anything too fancy, though it was painted. And the wallpaper on the walls is actually faux silk, and a lot of this house was actually restored from local volunteers. These shutters were brought in from a house on the East Coast. They actually fit these windows perfectly, and the house was from about the same time period. So it was really a blessing that the Glen House was able to acquire these and install them without altering them. The hand stenciling on the ceiling was also recreated by volunteers using patterns that were found throughout the house. As we look up, this house originally had electricity, which was pretty rare for the time. This was one of the first homes in southeastern Missouri to have featured electricity. So this light fixture above us is actually original. And once again, we're seeing leaded glass here. Moving on from the parlor, we come into the dining room. And let's take a moment to just really take in this space. We have a chandelier featuring electric light bulbs. It has a pull down on it. We have speaking tubes in here, which we'll show you more about that in just a moment. There's even a bell system underneath this chair. And this is where the lady of the house would have sat. This way she could have called her maids discreetly without disrupting her guests. As we look around the room, we can see the Lincoln pattern wallpaper on the walls. Above me here to either side are transom windows, and this would have allowed the space to breathe because this house was actually designed by a professional architect, and it was set up in a way to maximize airflow throughout the house for cooling in the summer months. As we look up, we can also see more original chandeliers. There are 4, one in each corner, and something really interesting is that when they were doing restoration work on this house, the ceiling was actually found to have been painted in an ombre pattern. So it's pink that fades to white, and then with original stenciling that runs corner to corner, and then ornate plasterwork that everything is centered on in this room. And all of the dining room china is staged and is not actually original. So using some imagination here, this might have been laid out a little bit differently whenever it was originally built. This is actually the original entrance to the house. So that's just something to kind of ponder as we unravel some of the mysteries of this home and how it's laid out. So let's walk on through here. And we're now entering a giant butler's pantry. Once again, this space here was added on in the addition in the year 1900. It features a sink and a giant built-in, which is original to the house, and a telephone. So this house actually has 3 built-in telephones, or at least it's wired for 3 different telephones. And these were some of the very first phones in southeastern Missouri. And what's really cool is that the original phone lines for the house were actually found inside of the built-in at the end of this hallway. Off of the butler's pantry, we turn the corner and we come to one of the most jaw-dropping kitchens you have ever seen for period accuracy. And the first thing we notice in this room that catches our eye are the speaking tubes. So you could have actually talked in here to call the maid into the kitchen or whichever room you wanted her in. And as we look around, we see a stove, we see a giant porcelain sink over in the corner. And let's actually take a closer look at that because there's a cherry pitter on the end. So you can imagine picking cherries from your garden and then de-seeding them right here at your sink. So we can see that this radiator here also has a steam vent in it. So this would have heated up your food. It's kind of like a microwave, but back in Victorian times. So they did have a way of heating up their food without necessarily having to cook. And this is called a warming rack. So you'd put water in the bottom and it would heat up your food with steam. So before refrigerators, people had ice boxes. And when the iceman would come to make his deliveries of ice, you would put this card out and he would know, do you want 50, 75, 125? He would know exactly which quantity of ice you wanted to fill up your icebox with. And as we look behind the icebox, there's actually a pantry and it is stocked with period accurate items that local families have donated to stock the pantry here at the Glen House with. Off of this kitchen is the summer kitchen, and let's go take a look at that. So it's inside of this little box that is built off of the side of the house, and it's actually not even attached to the home. Right directly across from the indoor kitchen is the summer kitchen. So this is where they would have cooked in the summer months to avoid the house from overheating. And what you're seeing inside of this space is pretty much exactly what it would have looked like at the turn of the century. So before we head back inside, I want to take a second to point out a little detail about the exterior of this home. So back in the Victorian days, it was all the rage to have faux everything. So people would have faux marbles, stone blocks, faux stone, all sorts of things. So this might look like stone to you, but it's actually wood that has been shaped and beveled, almost like it is beveled limestone. So that's just an interesting and quirky fact to point out about this house. So let's head back on into the back door over here, and we're going to go back into the stair hall and finish exploring the first floor. Walking back inside, we're going to pass the dining room again on your left and the parlor again on your left. Rounding this corner around the staircase, we come to the library. So there are a few interesting things to note about this space. First of all, the flooring. So we see this rug in the middle and we wonder, okay, what are they covering up? Well, this room was actually designed to incorporate the rug. So the frame border we see in hardwood that goes around the rug was designed in such a way, and we can actually see that over here. There's a little honesty square where we can see the cheap wood below the carpet. And the carpet would have been a status symbol. It would have been to demonstrate your wealth, because this was a time period where carpets were just being brought into the house. And another luxury feature is this bay window in the corner. Let's take a look at the stenciling in this room. And this hand stenciling was all created by local volunteers in Cape Girardeau, as well as the hand leafing that goes around the molding in the room. So coming out of the library, we're now going to walk upstairs. As we arrive at the top of the stairs, we've just passed a landing behind us, and we'll get to that in a moment. So now we are in the atrium, and this is where the owner of the house would have had her sewing box, where she would have knit, done all of that kind of seamstress work. Now outside is where she actually used to throw her tea parties. So you can imagine all of these Victorian girls with their corsets and big, beautiful dresses out here on this balcony, drinking their tea and just having a jolly old time. And in the atrium, we can see these stained glass windows. And these were actually brought in from another house from Cape Girardeau that was built possibly a little bit earlier than the Glen House was. And before we move on to the first bedroom, let's look at this old phone directory. This is just really cool because not many people in this area had a telephone, so you can just kind of see who all the other residents who were early adopters of this technology were. Off the atrium, we're now on the southwest side of the house, and this would have been the kids' room. And the reason the kids' room is on the southwest side of the house is because it stays the warmest and gets the most direct sunlight. This chandelier has a brushed nickel finish, and it runs on both kerosene and electricity. As we look around some of the details of this room, there's actually some just really fun toys to point out. I know that that's not very typical for us, but let's take a look anyways. This dollhouse here is modeled after the stage at Piccadilly. So we can also see the pipe organ that goes along with it over on this side of the space. There's also kind of a macabre theme to this house as well. We can really pick that up in the wallpaper border of this space. And that was actually designed in 1886 and was actually very popular to have these sort of grim and enchanting themes in children's bedrooms. Leaving the children's room, we're going to cut back to the atrium and we're going to come to the master suite. So the master suite is a little different than what we might have from modern day, but this is actually a pretty, I want to say technologically advanced room. It has another chandelier, also runs on kerosene and electricity. And it is centered on a plaster medallion. And let's pan back around the room because this is just absolutely breathtaking. It also has a lot of really period furniture, such as a wash basin over here. This is where you can freshen it up in the morning. We even have an old soap bar and soap jar. So I had mentioned Lula earlier, the actual owner of this home. It's kind of a contentious issue how exactly she became a property owner, whether the house was always in her name or it came into her name later on. So we mentioned that she used to go out having these tea parties on the veranda. Let's look at some of what she would have worn here. This is all period accurate clothing. And we can see this is all clothing for a full-grown woman, but we can see that the corsets brought the waist in so small. So we can just imagine her running around very daintily, hosting these parties with her gals. So moving out of the master suite, we come to the riverboat room. And this would have been the boys' room, and it's really telling because of how masculine the space is, with the darker colors, the heavier furniture, the heavier metal tones especially, as well as other antiques. And something fascinating about Edwin, he was Lula's son, and he actually became a fashion designer after he moved out and was actually listed in the phone directory as such. And once again, as we look around this room, we can see all of these really interesting architectural features. Let's start with the door over here because it actually has a burley pine veneer on it. So once again, this goes back to the Victorians' obsession with just kind of making everything and mundane objects fake or appear to be something that they're not. As we continue to look around the room, we can see old cameras and old photographs of the SS Cape Girardeau. Now, this boat was rebuilt several times, and every time it was rebuilt, it actually ended up sinking. So around here, it's kind of known as a bad omen. Okay, leaving the riverboat room, we're now going to walk down the stairs to the landing, and behind this door is the sleeping porch. So let's go take a look at that. So now we're actually out on the sleeping porch, and this would have originally been screened in, or at least partially enclosed. And this was to allow the residents to escape the heat in the summer from indoors and come catch a cool summer breeze while they sleep outside. So we're going to start over here. This is where the servant would have lived in the house. And as we walk in, I can tell you guys a little bit about the servant who lived here. And the servant who lived here was an Irish immigrant. And you can see she actually had a really nice setup here. And she would have lived here full time and would have been paid to take care of the children and cook. So now leaving the maid's room, we come to another really curious feature of this house. There's actually a bathroom off of the sleeping porch. And nothing in this bathroom is original to the house, but it is all period accurate. Now let's go back on inside and let's have an interview with the curator of this property. Thank you everyone for coming on this tour with us. Now we're going to sit down with Christy Mershon. And Christy Mershon, you have a very special role in this house. Why don't you tell us all what you do here?
So I'm the president of the board of directors of the Historical Association of Greater Cape Girardeau, and we do business as the Glen House. So we run this particular historical house museum.
That's wonderful. And what makes this house worth preserving?
You know, there are a lot of grand homes. I watched, you guys did an incredible job with the Magic Chef Mansion and those big homes like that house or the Biltmore, big estates. But there aren't as many examples that have managed to weather time of sort of that upper middle class Victorian Industrial Revolution time period. So we're pretty excited that this house, which is grand in its own way, but certainly not one of those big mega mansions, has been able to survive and thrive, and we can show a little piece of what it was like to be an upper class merchant during that late 1800s, early 1900s time period.
It's amazing, and I think it is just so important that people are able to see how not just the wealthiest of residents lived, but also how just like normal people, or maybe above normal in some ways, lived. So that's all very interesting. Tell us a little bit about your organization.
Yeah, this place is really unique. It's actually the process of turning the house into a museum started in the late 60s. The house has been a historical house museum since 1974, and it has never received any state or federal money. This is all maintained with the love of a community. So we are entirely dependent on charitable donations from our community, local businesses and individuals that care about preserving community history.
That's amazing. And if any of you would like to make a donation to help with the preservation work of this house, please visit the link in the description. That will take you to the spot where you can really make a large impact in the small community of Cape Girardeau to help to preserve this house. All right, Christy, thank you so much for opening up the doors to the Glen House for us. Everyone at home, I hope that you can take away a really important lesson in preservation and why it matters to really restore and to love and care for a house like this. Please make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. I'll see you next time on This House.